Hello there. Bad scoping or lack of scope control is probably one of the most common reasons I see for unfinished projects that never see the light of day. At least I find that my projects lose momentum when I can't work out what I'm supposed to be doing next because they're either overscoped or poorly defined. We see plenty of advice and tutorials on YouTube about the more fun topics like programming, art and music, but I never see something like scope really being talked about that much because I think it generally falls onto the more boring side of management in game dev. But the problem with this is that scope management is really important. I think managing the scope of a project is like maintaining good eating habits, a sleep routine, and lots of exercise for a person. We want to eat junk food, sit around all day and stay up late, but we know that that's not good for our long-term health. So with this video, I wanted to share some ideas on managing the scope of your project so that you can apply some of them to your own endeavors. Also, feel free to subscribe because all we do on this channel is try to get more out of our game dev experience. Controlling the scope of your project starts at the very beginning. It starts with your ideas. Now, the only useful ideas are the ones you can actually take action on. You need to try and work on ideas that are roughly within your current skill level and perhaps a little bit beyond if you really want to encourage your sort of learning and personal progress. But even judging what is within your current skill level can be really difficult, especially when you're starting out. And generally, the only way that these estimations and judging can improve is with experience. When I was younger, experience used to really annoy me because there was no shortcut to just getting it faster. But this is also kind of a good thing because as you do something more and more, you do just get more experience. And that's nearly all there is to it, except you have to consider the quality of the experience that you're getting. If you're in a positive environment with lots of good resources available to you, you'll generally improve a lot faster than if you're in a distracting environment with no clear motivation or purpose. This is why having a mentor or access to really good resources is so important because it can help you get along these paths of experience a little bit faster. So there are no shortcuts, but you can move along at a faster rate. The experience you get will help you gauge your own skills as well as the skills of other people. You know how long it took to create a player controller last time, so you can roughly gauge how long it will take to create a similarly scoped player controller again, but also with the knowledge that for parts of it, you'll already know what to do. The more practical experience you get, the more you'll get an understanding of how long these things take to do. This is the reason that game jams are suggested as such good experience. You're just given 2 or 3 days and you have to see what you can do in those 2 or 3 days. And after doing a game jam, you know what you can do in 2 or 3 days. Experience also really helps when it comes to planning. Planning can and does mean a huge amount of different things, with there being hundreds of different ways of doing it. Kanban boards like Trello, design docs, wikis, bullet points on paper, these are all methods for planning things and they all try to do, in my opinion, essentially the same thing. Having a clear set of objectives that are understandable and actionable. So any planning method that lets you get understandable and actionable objectives is perfectly valid to me. You need to take your ideas and thoughts and reduce them down into individual tasks that you can complete to realize the initial idea. From experience, these tasks cannot be vague because otherwise that leads to procrastination. Instead, they should normally be actions that you can pick up and start working on straight away. If they aren't that, then you probably need to do some more planning and break those tasks down even further. Obviously, you have to be your own judge for how much you break down tasks, but like I said, a good marker is when you can look at a task and just start working on it straight away. This next part is where you have to be quite ruthless with your projects. If you're consistently aiming for projects that are just way too big and overscoped, you need to get in the habit of cutting features from your plan that don't contribute to the core experience you want to provide with the game. As an example, I would love to add multiplayer to my current game, Project Drifter, but I know that adding something like that would dramatically increase the scope of the project and wouldn't actually contribute directly to the core experience I want to provide. Would multiplayer be fun? Yeah, it would be really fun. Spelunky 2 is a great example of a game that is normally single player but has had multiplayer added onto it later on. But these types of games work at their best as a single player game and it's not a part of the core experience to have it as a multiplayer game. So that feature was definitely cut from any of my initial plans. The only way to reduce the scope of a project is to reduce the amount of features that you need to add to it yourself. This is why plugins and pre-built solutions can be so powerful, because they reduce a lot of the legwork that you have to do yourself. Feature creep is something that almost goes hand in hand with cutting features, but it's a little bit more sinister because it happens while you're developing your game. Say you've got your plan, you have clearly defined objectives, and you have a rough idea of how long it will take. Even if you're way off, having a target is still good. But then after some time into development, being up really close to the project, you decide that this extra feature would go perfectly in there. Wouldn't it be cool if the player could do this as well? What if I added an extra secret area to this part of the level? This is a problem because you're adding work and increasing the scope of the project. You're moving the initial goalpost you set for yourself even further away. Now, I'm not saying that you should create a plan and stick to it 100%. Actually, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. You should make a plan and stick to it as closely as possible. Your initial plan should almost always be to create an MVP, a minimum viable product. Because after your initial plan of creating the MVP, you can then decide to create a new plan where you edit things or create new features afterwards. It's a lot easier to give yourself lots of smaller, medium-sized plans that seem much more within reach than to give yourself these huge, large mega plans for the whole game, which seem completely out of reach, and you might change your mind halfway through anyway. So with these thoughts on managing ideas, getting experience, planning, feature cutting, and feature creep avoidance, I hope I've given you some insight on how at least I manage the scope of my projects to stop them from getting out of control. Subscribe for more game dev stuff. I really like making videos like this that help out people who enjoy the same pastime as me, so there's more every week. Follow me on Twitter for updates on my current game, Project Drifter. Join the Discord to meet and talk to other like-minded devs, and until next time, goodbye.
String of words that I think I've used before. Can't think of another creative way to twist it. You feel safe, locked behind your bedroom door. I don't think that I'm ever gonna change.